Welcome, Dr. Susan Martinez. Susan is the author of a list of amazing books. We're going to be discussing the lost history of the Little People's civilizations. She's a series of other books, including The Psychic Life of Abraham Lincoln, Time Quickening, The Mysterious Origins of Hybrid Man, and Delusions, Science, Spirituality, and This Field Guide to the Spirit World, and The Why of Anatomy of Shooting, The Hidden Prophet, and A Prayer Contagion, which I think is fabulous too. Now, Susan is also an advocate of the Faith Osapi, which is little known in this sort of part of the country belief system. It was automatically written this religious book. So I want to ask Susan about the Little People, because Susan has written this phenomenal book, and everybody has to go and get a copy of this. Susan, do you think that the Little People and the she are currently alive and active in Ireland?
Okay. I could see from your questions that you were focused on that. But the actual race of little people, and we're talking about people of a height of 3 feet tall, went extinct a few thousand years ago. Okay. That doesn't mean they didn't leave descendants, but your question apparently has something to do with sightings.
Yeah, we do. I've was it Miles here is a telecommunications engineer. Well, he was a sort of a mast and all the rest of it, but his colleague disappeared in a couple of portals, and but in one of those portals in South Tyrone, there was also the sightings of little people in that area at that time. And there had been speaking to somebody over in the States. They're tight-lipped about it, but their family were getting visitations from little people.
Okay. Looking over your questions, I got the impression that you were interested in the fairy kingdom and questions of sightings and stuff like this. And I'll be honest with you, my reaction was of the following nature. Some people are gifted with the seeing. You know what I mean? The seeing. Other people are not. And so it is possible that some of this information has come from people with the clairvoyant sight, so that they are capable of seeing things that are coming down from the spirit world. This is my reaction, because whenever I have had to deal with ideas of the fairies, it comes down to the same thing. These apparitions or appearances or whatever you call them from the unseen world are capable of manifesting on the earth plane, but not everybody can see them. And my impression is that these sightings have come from people with the gift of seeing. And so it's quite possible that elements from the unseen world, from the spirit world, including little people, have occurred here on earth. But in my opinion, it's a spiritual phenomenon. And it's not a race of people still running around and hiding somewhere.
Yeah, the origins of the little people. I'm looking at images here. The cover of your book has the Egyptian god Bez. Whenever you look at Bez and you look at the stereotypical images of a leprechaun, that you're looking at one and the same thing. And I had made references to stone carvings, Egyptian god Bez, who's the frontispiece on your fabulous book. Bez has the same proportions as what we would call our leprechauns, carved pillars that we have around Ireland, and they're known as the pilgrim. They seem to have the same proportions as Bez. Do you think that they come from the same source? Is Bez the forerunner of our little people?
Well, for one thing, I didn't choose that image of Bess for the cover of my book. You know how the publisher will put what they want. There was a dwarfish appearance of Bess, kind of squashed. And dwarfism is something quite different from the little people, because the historical little people who were called Ehins, they were called Ehins. As I said, they were very tiny in stature, around 3 feet tall, and perfectly proportioned. They were people of white skin and white hair, or sometimes yellow hair. So that the dwarf image that comes across in Bess, I can't speak to that, but in wherever you find religious iconography and little people in such iconography, it is a remembrance of the historical little people who were called the Ehins. They were, if you want to know some of the history that comes out of OASPE, the OASPE Bible, they were the survivors of the flood. They were the only survivors of the flood. And the flood, as we have in these records, was actually the sinking of the continent of Pan, which was a continent in the Pacific Ocean. This timeline goes back 24,000 years. There was something I wanted to remember to tell you, and I'm getting to it now. They were the sacred people on Earth, and there's a whole separate story of why the continent was sunk by the gods. It was sunk by intentionally, but the sacred people, the little people, had warning of it and built ships in order to escape. So as the story goes, they built 34 ships and went out, left the sinking continent of Pan to arrive in the 5 different parts of the world, the rest of the world, which would be Japan, China, India, Africa, and America. That would be Yishtar, Japheth, Shem, Ham, and Gautama. Those are the ancient names for the 5 continents. Okay, the part I was trying to remember to tell you, and I finally did, is that they went out in 5 fleets, but there were 34 ships altogether. There were 34 ships in the 5 fleets. And, when I was writing these books and doing the research, I only found one place in the world with a record of that number of ships, and that place was Ireland. I couldn't, just now before I spoke with you, I looked on my computer. I couldn't find the exact reference, but I have it in memory that there is an Irish recollection of 34 ships arriving there in Ireland, or of 34 ships setting forth from some other place, and some of the people arriving in Ireland. And I was really, really pleased to find that. And it kind of confirmed my suspicion that the settlement of Ireland is something separate and earlier than most of the rest of Europe, because they had such a clear memory of the factual history of those new arrivals. And they were all little people. They were the Ehin people who settled Europe, Africa, Asia, America, and Japan. That's the basic outline of the histories we have from Owaspe on how the little people came to populate all parts of the world based on the sinking of the continent of Pan, which itself was a spiritual matter because the world had gone crazy like it's going crazy now, and there was no remnant in the world of the original teachings and the teachings of faith except for the little people who were hiding out in the mountains of Pan, which is the Pacific continent. They were persecuted and they were killed off in all the rest of the world. You see, this is why the gods had to save them in order to assure that the people of Earth would have a higher level of spirit. And so the continent was sunk, and that's one of my other books, The Lost Continent of Pan. And the little people were saved, and as a result of their journeys, landed in the rest of the world. And now here's an interesting part of it for you to ponder. They were told to keep apart, to remain apart, so that the teachings could be preserved. But in time, they did mix with the indigenous tribes in every place where they landed, and that's how you get survivors, so to speak, people to this day who have the same DNA as the original tribes of little people.
Whereabouts did you derive the 34 ships information? Because I haven't come across that before, but it ties up to other pieces of information that we would have. Do you know where that is mentioned about the 34 ships?
I didn't have enough time before we began talking. I was looking on my computer for the reference, and I'm sure I could find it.
Okay.
But it's only a fragmentary mention, but it really jolted me because I recognized that figure, 34, and I was able to tie it in with the teachings in Owaspe. But when I find it, I will send it to you. It's nothing more than a phrase or two mentioning that there's an Irish legend that there were 34 ships coming, traveling, and that some of them landed in Ireland.
That's amazing. There's a legend of an Egyptian king called King Menes. He was the world emperor, that he arrived to the north of Ireland, into Lough Foyle, and he was stung by a hornet and died before he set foot. And when he was returning back to Ireland, beside where he allegedly sort of disembarked, or his body was disembarked from the ship, they named the field after him. So it's Clon Menes, Writer Hoard, which would have been on the other side of the thing. So we think that was an offering given, located close to where King Menes arrived. And we think that Bez came with him, and some other Egyptian gods travelled with King Menes, because there was carvings of what you could see as being either Bez or little people in King Menes' company, that literally there's carvings there that are in excess of 1,000 years old, that once you put them side by side with a carving from Luxor, they're identical. So, and you'd mentioned Skara Brae, or the Scottish island. You'd mentioned what we could also call the moon people. That's something that you mention in your book. And you also talk about Skara Brae, which is another island, which was a community of little people. Whenever you're talking about King Menes, there seems to be an Egyptian connection to some of these little people. So what we're finding is...
Yeah. You've got a question here that says, leprechauns, are they descendants of the Egyptian god Bes and Beset?
Well,
and I'd like to answer. Can I answer that now?
Please do.
I have a quote for you from Owaspe, from the book of Esdra, chapter 50, verse 30. And this is just one verse which is really very enlightening. And the time frame here is shortly after Moses, okay? So we're talking about 3,000 years ago. And I'm going to read it to you, quote unquote, from the book of Esdras. Now, after the fall of the great empire of Egypt, her people migrated westward, hundreds of thousands of them, and they settled in Western Europa, where these people married with the Aborigines. Their offspring were called Druids, Picts, Gaels, Gaelic, Celtic, Wales, Welsh, Gauls, and Johans, all of which are Egyptian names preserved to this day, unquote. So this right here indicates that all the speculations about Egyptian origins in the Irish Isles are correct. But it goes back 3,000 years, and it's basically lost history unless you catch up with what's going on in Oaspe.
With regards to the little people and the connections to Egyptian Coptic Christianity, I mean, once we look back to the history of, say, St. Patrick, they say that he was taught the Egyptian Coptic Christianity, and he brought that back here, which is interesting because and also our ancient high crosses around Ireland, we see all of these little people on the high crosses. They all wear the cloak with the staff and holding the bell, and it seems to be that these were revered religious people, these little people. But also there's a place that Miles and I were talking about in a place called Crumlin, where there was a place called Church of the Dwarf. Why are there so many little people on the high crosses around Ireland?
As we were talking and as I was reviewing the material, it suddenly came to me that I suddenly have the impression that the little people survived longer in private enclaves in Ireland than in any other part of the world, because the seeing and the abilities, the understanding of the medicines and the skills, all these things seem to be better preserved in Ireland than I would say almost in any part of Europe except maybe Basque country, where they also have little, where the people tend to be of shorter stature. Let me ask you, in Ireland, do you have any sections where people are very short?
I'd actually put down a question to talk to you about the fact that you used to see mixes of people where you would find people that were sort of just unusually small. We had unusually sort of diminutive, but you used to up until about 20 years ago. Not really, not anymore. So
right.
So what about the all of the stone carving little people? What are your thoughts about who they are and why those are there?
I think that in the olden time there were more mixes of the people, and that the more religious ones attempted in every way to preserve the teachings, and they did it on stone, and they did it in carvings, they did it in art, and in symbolism, and all the manifestations that we see today. Attempt to preserve the teachings, because that was the purpose of the Ehan race, to spread wisdom, spiritual wisdom, to the rest of humanity. And it's thanks to their existence that we are here today, because at one point, maybe 6,000 years ago, they weren't so sure if Earthlings were really towing the line as decent human beings, and they were considering ending it all. But no, there was a remnant of of the truth, and it was decided to carry on.
There seems to be a connection also with little people and mining. What is your metals mining in particular? There's a lot of small tunnels in where some of these little people used to be seen.
I personally don't think that the little people made for living underground. The habit of the little people was the mounds. They were the original mound builders. There are many leftovers of that here in the Americas, and there are mounds in Europe and all over the world that were left by the little people. And the reason they built mounds, they were built of earth, was to, again, remain aloof from the rest of humanity, because there were dangers in their mixing. They were instructed to keep apart, to remain a separate people. So as far as earthworks and things that we can observe today, it's always the mounds that I associate with the original little people, and not any of the tunnels. I think those are other phases of history that the tunnels are related to.
There's some caves that are associated with leprechauns here, and but there's also the legends of the moon people. Do you want to discuss that? I think they're associated with the little
moon
people
up
too.
Above. The only thing I can say about that is that here in America, the little people were remembered by the Cherokee Indians as moon-eyed. They must have had very round eyes, and they were little, and they were separate, and they were called the moon people.
If I can interject there, Susan, I've just interviewed a lady from North Carolina, and she's published a book on the Cherokee little people, and I think she has a photograph. Do you know her?
I'm aware that a North Carolina lady wrote a book on the little people. I live in Georgia, about 20 minutes from the North Carolina line.
Right. And anyway, she's called Mary A. Joyce. And it's just interesting that I was talking with her about this only a week ago.
Wow. And what did she say?
Well, insofar as it was a reintroduction, because I talked to her about all the bases that were being made in that area about 15 years ago at the International UFO Congress, and we're still trying to recover that original interview. But it's interesting that what you're talking about. My colleague, he got taken 4 times in St. Patrick's Chair in Well, and the beings he met were small people with robes and things. So it seems to be all the same sort of thing.
What color robes?
I didn't get that from him. I could ask him.
Oh, so with your permission, and Josie, I'll tell you where the little people came from.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. I'll make as much use of the telephone as possible. I'm not too sure if it's cutting out because it goes quiet for more than about a minute, but we'll just keep going.
Well, don't worry about it. Okay. Am I with you, Josie?
Yes, I'd love to hear this. Thank you.
Let me run this down, because I'm giving you the basics of our understanding from the EPI Bible, and I'm going to tell you where the little people came from. We have to go back about 75,000 years, when the earth was occupied by sort of, I would say, subhumans. They were creatures that had no real speech. They lived in trees, and they scampered around on all fours sometimes. Their name in EPI is Asu. And that's a name I've also traced through the legends. But, that's the kind of shape the Earth was in 75,000 years ago. The Asu people were human, but they were animal-like, and they did not have a spiritual potential. and so the gods decided to send down angelic people to vivify the earth with truth and with understanding and with elevate the human nature. And so angels were sent down, and they embodied themselves when they reached the earth, and they were told to keep separate and not mix with the Asu man, but eventually they did mix. That's been going on forever. That has always gone on, the mixing. They did mix, and the product was the little people, the Ehin race. And they, in turn, were told to keep separate as much as possible, but eventually they, too, did mix with the nature people of the earth and produced a new race called Ihuan. And from that point on, there's been nothing but mixing of the races. There is no Darwinian evolution involved here. All that you ever can say about the mixed types of fossil man is that they came out of intermarriage, interbreeding. So that gives you a picture of the little people. They were guided. They lived by angelic guidance, but they gained by mixing with Earthman. They gained more of a footing in reality and became the race that they are. I just wanted you to know that, because that is kind of like it's the anti-Darwin view, which my other book is about, the mysterious origins of hybrid man. Hybrid is the key word there.
This is fascinating. I'm really enjoying this. Keep going.
Good.
Thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of your book on this. The north of Ireland seemed to come through very strongly, and the Rathlin area. So would you like to talk about that, Susan?
What do you want to talk about it?
Just there seems to be an awful lot of activity there with sort of little people. We also hear things about Sasquatch and all kinds of wonderful things, and mermaids up there too. So,
if you be more specific with your question, I'll try to answer.
Could you talk about sort of what little people did you encounter in round sort of the north of Ireland, or sort of, well, the whole of Ireland? I mean, was there specific little tribes that you come across? I just keep sort of seeing all of these carvings, and I think that there's more to the whole story. Delving into your book, it just opens that all out for me. Sort of any sort of little communities there, because it seemed to be very well connected with spirituality.
Well, I'm going to have to find it in my book, and I found something here that says it's about the earthworks and megaliths of Ireland built by the Danaan, and they were the aristocrats and scientists and poets, and their architecture was a marvel in mathematics and engineering. Music was the principal magic they used, and by manipulating harmonics, they could lift and move massive objects. So the little...
With this, Susan, what I picked up from your book as well, which I thought was just, to be honest, it was stuff that I've been looking at and never really seen it before until you mentioned it in your book. But you'd mentioned about the little people over in the pyramids in Egypt. And then once you look at the images sort of in the pyramids, you have the pharaohs, and then you see the little people, sort of, but it's just like, well, because they're a different cast of people altogether. Sort of. Can you maybe talk about that too? Because I think this is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, and this relates to what I was talking about a minute ago, when the little people intermarried with the indigenous people, and the first prominent race that came out of that intermarriage was the Iwans, and they were the people who were master builders. But their teachers were the little people, so that sometimes things get confused, and it's as if the little people were the builders of pyramids or great monuments. All they built really was the mounds so that they could live upon them. But the master race of Iwans who came after them were a large people, and among them aggressive people, and they became the kings and the builders and the big shots of proto-history. So when it comes to any of the megalithic building, that is something that we would ascribe to the progeny of the little people when they intermarried, and they were not necessarily people of a spiritual nature, but they were aggressive, effective, and became rulers and kings.
Could you please give the titles of your books and where we can get them, just so we have a soundbite on that, please?
Well, if you look up my publisher, Inner Traditions, and use my name, you'll get a full listing of the books.
I'm thinking of the listener. If a listener, how would they do that? But it was just your name, title, and publisher.
It's Inner Traditions. Okay, I could tell you. I've already mentioned. There were actually 3 books I wrote that dealt with ancient mysteries, and that's one of them was The Little People. That was the first. Then I wrote The Lost Continent of Pan. That was published by Inner Traditions as well. The Lost Continent of Pan, and that's about the flood and how the earth was inhabited by the little people after the flood. And then the most important book is the Mysterious Origins of Hybrid Man, and that is the anti-Darwin version of how we got here, and it's about the mixing of the early races.
There's a lot of noise coming out about beings from Mars. They had to evacuate and come to Earth. So the story goes, and there are people who seem to be remembering that. Is there any evidence of off-world or a multi-planet civilization in any of your work?
No, I don't buy into that stuff any more than I buy into going to Mars, terraforming Mars. Mars is a dead planet. It's been a dead planet for quite a while, and I don't follow that stuff. But when it comes to UFOs, I have clear in my mind that there are 2 sources of UFOs, and one of them is the sky people coming down, and the other one is secret government projects. And I have no problem with UFOs because of that viewpoint. But now that we're coming into a new time, we're turning over, and we're coming into a new age for mankind. Now that time has arrived, the faithists, that's the followers of the little people like myself, and the readers of Oaspe, the faithists believe that the Etherians will be coming down in the next few years to help guide us through the transition to the next age. So if there are any sightings, some of them could be the Etherians at this point, but a whole lot of them are probably secrets that are coming out of government aerospace experiments.
I think it's that the modern parlance on that is the Secret Space Program, SSP. But who are the Etherians, and how do you spell that word?
The Etherians are a very high level of angels in a world, living in a world way above the ordinary heavens. Awashpe breaks down the next world into resurrections. There's the first. No, I'll start at the lowest point above the earth. Let's say a few thousand, several thousand miles above the earth is Hada, which can translate as hell. The Greek word is Hades, and that is a cognate of Hada. And that's where all the unresolved spirits of the earth go when they pass on, particularly the non-believers and the fighters and the criminals and the undecided and all that. When we go over to the next world, we have to pass through Hada. Those who have not evolved in any way spiritually get kind of stuck there, and there's a lot of information on that in Awashpe. I won't break it down now, but I'll just continue rising. If you are spiritually developed, you just pass through Hada in your transition to the next world, and you arrive at the first resurrection. Above the first resurrection is the second resurrection, which is really, and these are separate kingdoms. You can't go from one to the next. You're stuck in the place where you are according to your own goodness and your own development. But the first resurrection is really a great mixture of things. I can't go into it at the moment, but the second resurrection is where you get to a good place. The principles underlying life in the second resurrection are discipline, order, and harmony. And then above it is the third resurrection, and that's even more developed and enlightened. And above that is nirvana and the emancipated heavens. And so when I say the Etherians, and that comes from the word ether, the Etherians live in those higher dimensions, but they are slated to return to Earth to help us get through the crisis we're in now and deliver us into the new age that is around 2050 is sure to take form.
Excellent.
And so what should we be doing now then ourselves, Susan? I mean, for our own evolution, our own sort of spirituality, to move us into the right position for 2050 and for sort of ascension and so forth?
What's the question, dear?
What should we be doing ourselves to get us in the right position for, this evolution?
Probably you know the answer to it yourself. You know what I mean? It's up to each of us to look inward and to see. And, it really depends on how motivated you are to be a good person. That's what brings a lot of people into Awashpe in the first place. I would say that whenever you, and leave it to your gut, leave it to your instinct to tell you the answer to those things. But I will say that I have a friend, a new friend who just came into the faithist fold. He's a fellow who lives in Istanbul, and he asked me a similar question to what you just said. He asked me what he could do, to raise himself up. And the first thing I thought of was an exercise I did myself, and because our prophet did it, and I was emulating him. When he was getting ready to be the amanuensis for the OASPE Bible, he had a 10-year period of preparation for the automatic typewriting that brought OASPE into existence. Anyway, one of the things John did, he gave up meat right away, and he gave free dentistry and all that good stuff. But one of the inner things he did, and this is what I copied and what I recommended to my friend in Istanbul, is I sat down and I wrote a list of all my faults, all my shortcomings. I mean, how else can you rise above the negative things within your own persona? That's one way to start. It's right there staring at you when you write down that list. And if ever you want to, get back to it, you go back to it and you look and you say, yeah, I really am lazy. I really am critical. I really am negative. I really am this. I really am that. And you say, oh, Jehovah, let me get better. Let me improve. All you have to do is put your heart into it. I think it's a different process for everybody, but I'll just mention what I did.
You mentioned gene decode in this. There's a list about the gene decode.
Gene Decode had mentioned that the little people were underground and that they are fighting the corners for the Irish people. And do you have any thoughts about those words?
I think that the only people who are protected are the ones who are earning it. I don't think it's a random or a mass thing, and I don't tend to believe in fairy tales like that. You earn your protection. Probably in your own life, you can look at moments where you got out of a scrape, or you felt you were helped, and you don't understand how or why, but it could have been something. It could have been because of your goodness or because of your good motivation that you were protected. There are angels there for all of us, but it totally depends upon your spiritual grade. OASPE breaks down the spiritual grade of a person to a rating system from 0 to 100. And all the prophets were spiritually in the 90s, very close to the top grade. But all the bad ones on earth, the selfish ones are in the lower grades, grade 1, grade 2. You see what I'm saying? Depending on your grade. Depending on your grade, you get to that extent angelic protection.
Yeah, and how do we call that down? That's actually quite profound. The fact that we earn our protection and we earn the from the angels.
Yes.
Okay, Josie, last call. Just sort of round it up, and how do people make contact and things like that?
Okay, so look, thank you so much for joining us, Susan. I really appreciate Susan's books are available on Amazon, Susan B. Martinez, and there's the lost history of the little people, and a plethora of amazing books. So thank you so much for joining us, Susan. And we'll put up those links, and also put up the link to the OASPE Bible as well, so people can get a handle on that too. So thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, Susan, I think if we just do a goodbye, that was really, it's a tremendous honor to meet you for the first time. I'm Miles Johnson of the Basis Project, and we'll be able to put this out on that.
So thank you so much for joining us, Susan.
And I was thrilled because I love Ireland.
Well, there's a tremendous place. A lot of things are happening there to stop Ireland from progressing. A huge, terrible war going on now. But,
where?
Well, the way that they want to wipe out the indigenous Irish population within their own island.
Oh, it's horrible everywhere. But like I say, the next decade is going to get all this worked out. And even by 2032, there's going to be big enough changes. That's where the light and the dark come into balance in the year 2032. So, just keep the faith and keep pushing, and you're doing great.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful advice to close on. And Josie, one final word.
Oh no, just thank you very much, Susan. Thank you very much, Miles, for hosting this. It took a bit of technical wizardry for you to do this, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're using a thing called the telephone here, so it's amazing. Wireless on a telephone line. Thank you very much, everybody, and God bless you. As Dave Allen, the great prophet, would say, may your God go with you.
Good one.
Okay, good enough.
Have you ever heard of Dave Allen?
No.
Famous Irish comedian going back to the 80s and 80s.
Oh,
and
great.
He would always take a good shot at the Catholic Church with a bit of comedy. Very civilized, in a suit, with a whiskey beside him on BBC Two television. Very enlightened, and he'd be very eloquent. And he would always...
And let me know if you want to get some OWASP going in Ireland.
Well, I disagree with that. I don't think we should have any chemically induced awareness. But I just stick to Guinness, but we won't need to talk about that now.
I was talking about the OWASP Bible.
Exactly. Oh, the OWASP Bible. Well, just explain that. Where can people see that or get across it?
You have to spell it right. Josie misspelled it. It's OAHSPE.
Yes, that's OAHSPE. There's a missing H. Okay. The H is in the wrong place on the text.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's all over. We have a Facebook group. It's all over internet. So I hope you.
So what is the Facebook group? Quickly.
I don't know what it's called, but you have my email. Send me an email, and I'll try to find the information for you.
I will do that, and we'll put that visually on a graphic for the group. And really, thank you. This is absolutely amazing, and thank you very much.
Okay, it was lovely.
Bye-bye.